The scalpel slipped through skin at 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday that smelled like bleach and bad decisions. Dr. Adrian Cross held my heart in his hands for exactly 4 hours. When I woke up 3 days later, the monitor beside my bed showed a rhythm that wasn't mine. The nurse wouldn't meet my eyes when I asked whose heart was beating in my chest. And the surgeon who saved my life? He stood in the doorway at midnight, hands shaking, and whispered the truth I'd spent 6 months trying to forgive. Some thefts you can't report to the police. Stay until the end. Drop your location in the comments so I can see how far this journey reaches. Don't forget to like and subscribe to White Coat Tales, where every heartbeat has a story. Let's begin. The fluorescent lights hummed above me like wasps trapped in glass. I tried to sit up, but my chest pulled wrong, the pain sharper and deeper than anything I'd known. The scar felt too long, too deliberate. My fingers traced the raised line through the thin hospital gown, and my breath caught on something that wasn't quite fear. Nurse Patricia bustled in with pills in a small paper cup. Her eyes slid away from mine the way people avoid looking at car accidents. I need to speak with my surgeon. She adjusted my IV without answering. Patricia, who operated on me? Her hand trembled slightly as she checked the monitor. Dr. Cross will be by later. I was a medical journalist, 6 years writing about hospital corruption and pharmaceutical fraud. I knew evasion when I saw it. I also knew my own charts well enough to recognize that the rhythm on the screen above my bed wasn't the one I'd lived with for 32 years. What did he do to me? Patricia squeezed my hand once, briefly, then left without a word. The memories came in fragments. My desk at the newspaper. The article I'd been writing about unauthorized surgeries at County General. Then the crushing weight in my chest, sudden and absolute. The ambulance, the lights, the certainty that my father's bad heart had finally caught up with me through blood and genetics and time. I'd always known it would end this way, just not like this. The door opened at midnight. No knock, no warning. Just a man in surgical scrubs that looked like he'd been wearing them for days. Dark hair falling across eyes that hadn't seen sleep in a long time. Hands that stayed carefully at his sides, not reaching for my chart, not reaching for anything. Miss Reeves, I'm Dr. Adrian Cross, my surgeon. He moved closer but didn't sit. Just stood at the foot of my bed like a man awaiting verdict. Not exactly. His voice was quiet, steady, the kind of calm that comes from delivering bad news too many times. I need to tell you something you're not going to believe. The monitor beeped its foreign rhythm. My chest rose and fell with breath that felt different. Everything felt different. Try me. He looked at the screen above my bed, at the numbers that didn't match my medical history, at the evidence that couldn't be explained away. That's not your heart. The private room had better light, but worse answers. Maya watched the morning sun cut through Venetian blinds, while Adrian adjusted her medication drip with hands that never shook when they were working. Only after. Only when he thought she wasn't looking. You can't keep me here. Your rejection markers are elevated. He didn't look up from the IV pump. You need monitoring. I need answers. He finally met her eyes. The kind of tired that lives in bone marrow and doesn't wash out with sleep. You have a transplanted heart. Your body is learning to accept it. That takes time. Time you're buying by lying to hospital administration. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Patricia had already slipped her the truth in whispered fragments. The falsified donor records, the expedited tissue typing that should have taken days, the surgery that wasn't supposed to be a transplant at all. Maya reached for her phone on the bedside table, her chest constricted immediately, a fist of pressure that stole breath. The monitor erupted in shrill protest. Adrian was beside her before the second alarm. Stop. Just breathe. His hand hovered near her shoulder but didn't touch. Your nervous system is hypersensitive right now. Stress triggers arrhythmia. Convenient. It's biology. She forced air into lungs that felt too small. Or it's whatever you did to make sure I can't report you without coding. He stepped back, something like hurt crossing his face before the careful neutrality returned. I saved your life. Without my consent. Because you were dying. The argument died there. It always did. Because he was right, and she hated him for it. The real conversation came at 2 a.m. when her body betrayed her again. Nausea and tremors from the anti-rejection drugs. Adrian appeared as he always did, too fast, like he'd been waiting. He adjusted her medication with methodical precision while she watched through the haze. Whose heart is this? A young man. Brain death? No family to notify? Name? John Doe. 28 years old. Car accident on Route 9. He was a perfect tissue match. She studied his profile in the dim room. The careful way he measured each word. People don't just happen to be perfect matches. Sometimes they do. You saw his file by chance. Yes. And made a split-second decision to violate every medical ethics protocol in existence to save your life. He capped the syringe and finally looked at her. Yes. Maya's chest ached with something that wasn't rejection. Why? Because I could. His voice dropped to barely audible. Because I've watched too many people die waiting for hearts that never come. Because you were 32 and brilliant, and you had a father who died of the same genetic defect, and I had one chance to make sure you didn't follow him. She went very still. How do you know about my father? Adrian's face drained of color. Down the hall, footsteps approached. Expensive shoes on linoleum. Dr. Richard Palmer's voice carried, through the half-open door, speaking to someone about irregularities in surgical records and the need for a comprehensive audit of the cardiac wing. Adrian's eyes met hers. We need to talk, but not here. The coffee appeared on her bedside table at 6 a.m. Real coffee, the kind that smelled like it came from somewhere with exposed brick and overpriced pastries. Maya wrapped both hands around the cup and watched Adrian adjust her IV port without meeting her eyes. Your hands are shaking. He finished the adjustment before responding. Haven't slept. When do you sleep? When patients are stable. She counted back the days since her transplant. 14. She'd seen him every single day, often multiple times. Sometimes at 3 a.m. when her monitor alarmed. Sometimes at noon when it didn't. You can't work triple shifts indefinitely. Watch me. He was already moving toward the door. She'd learned his patterns. He never stayed longer than necessary. Never sat down. Never lingered in doorways like he was now, hand on the frame, something unspoken caught in his throat. The coffee's good. Thank you. He nodded once and disappeared. Physical therapy started that afternoon. James had kind eyes and patient hands, and a way of explaining things that didn't make her feel broken. He guided her through basic exercises, while her new heart protested the effort, with rhythms she didn't recognize. You're doing great. Most transplant patients take weeks to get this far. Most transplant patients had proper protocols. James smiled like he knew a secret. You're lucky Dr. Cross is so invested. Most surgeons hand off post-op care. He hasn't left your side. That's one word for it. He's a good man. James steadied her arm as she lifted a 2-pound weight. Had some trouble a few years back. Lost a patient. Transplant that didn't take. I think it broke something in him. Maya filed the information away with everything else she'd been collecting. The way Adrian's jaw tightened when Palmer walked past. The falsified donor records. The perfect tissue match that wasn't in any system. Late that night, she opened her laptop, started searching. Official hospital records showed nothing, but nursing forums and deleted social media posts told a different story. Whispers about a surgery 2 years ago, a transplant that failed, a young woman, accusations of malpractice buried under legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Adrian's name appeared in fragments, never directly, always in the margins of other people's grief. She found a memorial page. Sarah Chen, 29, beloved daughter and sister. Died 3 weeks after receiving a heart transplant at Metropolitan Hospital, Adrian's hospital. The door opened without warning. Adrian froze when he saw her screen. Maya turned the laptop toward him. "Tell me about Sarah Chen." He stood very still, then moved to the chair beside her bed and sat for the first time since this began. His hands were shaking again. I followed every protocol with Sarah. Did she do everything right? Her body rejected the heart anyway. He stared at his palms like they held answers. I watched her die over 3 weeks, slowly, while we waited for another heart that never came. So you decided protocols don't matter. I decided that sometimes following the rules means watching people die. His eyes finally met hers. And I couldn't do that again. The monitor beeped its steady foreign rhythm between them. Maya's chest tightened, but not from rejection. Is that why you did this? Gave me someone else's heart without asking? Because you needed to save someone after failing her? Adrian's face went very pale. Because the donor wasn't a John Doe at all, was he? Palmer's voice carried through the half-open office door like a surgical saw through bone. Cold. Precise. Destructive. Maya had been cleared for short, supervised walks. The nurse had stepped away to check on another patient. No one noticed her pause in the hallway outside the chief of surgery's office. The timeline doesn't match, Dr. Cross. Palmer's tone suggested he was enjoying this. Standard organ procurement takes a minimum of 6 hours from declaration of brain death. Your records show 2. Adrian's response was too quiet to hear clearly. And the donor consent forms are remarkably thin, almost as if they were completed after the fact. Maya's chest tightened. She pressed her hand against the wall for balance. I followed emergency protocols. You followed no protocols. Palmer's chair scraped against floor. If this becomes public, we face federal investigation, loss of accreditation, lawsuits that will bankrupt this hospital. A patient's life was saved. A patient's consent was violated. Palmer's footsteps approached the door. You have 2 weeks to clean up your paperwork trail. Make this look legitimate, or I report you to the medical board myself. Silence. Then Adrian's voice, barely audible. I won't falsify records. Then you're a fool. Maya moved before the door could open, her new heart hammering against ribs that didn't quite fit right yet. She made it to the elevator before her legs started shaking. She found Adrian an hour later on the surgical floor. He stood outside an operating room, watching through the glass as another surgeon worked. His reflection in the window looked like a ghost already haunting the place where he used to matter. Maya stopped beside him, said nothing, just watched the surgery she didn't understand, and the man who looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. I used to be good at this, he said finally. You still are. Not anymore. That night he brought real food to her room. Thai curry that smelled like ginger and lemongrass, and a world beyond these walls. They ate in silence at the small table by the window. The city lights spread below them like a promise neither could keep. Adrian set down his fork. The donor wasn't a stranger. Maya's hand stilled halfway to her mouth. His name was Ethan. He was my younger brother. The room tilted slightly. Or maybe that was just her heart adjusting to information it couldn't process. He was 28. Brilliant. Broken. Adrian's voice stayed steady through years of practiced grief. Addicted to opioids after a skiing accident when he was 19. I tried to help him. 17 rehab stays. I lost count of the interventions. Where was he? I didn't know. He'd been gone 3 years. No contact. Then the hospital admitted him. Overdose. Brain death. By the time I found out it was him, he was already gone. Maya's throat closed around words that wouldn't come. I ran his tissue typing. Adrian met her eyes. You were dying on my table. He was already dead on another floor. You matched. Perfectly. And I had one chance to make sure something good came from losing him. So you put your brother's heart in my chest. I put a heart that would have been buried in the chest of someone who would die without it. Without asking me. There wasn't time to ask. There's always time for consent. Not when someone is dying. His hands were shaking again. Not when you have seconds to choose between following rules written by people who've never held a failing heart and saving a life. Maya looked down at her chest where her borrowed heart beat its foreign rhythm. Did you do this for me? Or for him? Both. Neither. He closed his eyes. I don't know anymore. Outside, Palmer's silhouette passed the hallway window. Adrian saw it, too. He knows, doesn't he? Maya asked. About Ethan? Not yet. But he will. Maya woke at 2 a.m. to find Adrian asleep in the chair beside her bed, not watching monitors, not adjusting medication. Just asleep. His head tilted at an angle that would leave his neck aching, his hands finally still in his lap. She watched him breathe. Watched the lines around his eyes soften. Watched what he looked like when he wasn't carrying the weight of every life he'd touched. The monitor beeped its rhythm. Her rhythm now. Ethan's rhythm. A heartbeat that had belonged to a brilliant broken boy who'd died alone while his brother searched for him. Adrian stirred, awareness returning in fragments. His eyes opened. Found hers in the dim light. You should go home. Don't have one. Not really. He straightened slowly, wincing. Just an apartment I sleep in sometimes. When was the last time? He had to think about it. Tuesday. It's Friday. Is it? She should hate him, should despise him for making her body a graveyard for his guilt. But her own father had died when she was 12. Heart attack in his office. The same genetic defect now beating its borrowed rhythm in her chest. She'd spent 20 years running from that inheritance, writing about corruption because she couldn't write about loss, chasing control because her body had always been a countdown she couldn't stop. Tell me about Ethan, she said. Adrian was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then words came like blood from a reopened wound. He was 2 years younger. Smarter than me. Could have been anything. He chose skiing and parties and freedom. Then he chose pills because his back hurt. Then he chose pills because everything hurt. You tried to help? 17 times. Rehab, interventions, tough love, soft love, every kind of love I knew. He looked at his hands. None of it mattered. He didn't want to be saved. But you needed to save him anyway. I needed him to live. Adrian's voice cracked. I needed there to be something good left when it was over. Maya's throat burned. My father died at his desk. Spreadsheets and quarterly reports. I was at school. Didn't even get to say goodbye. That's why you became a journalist. I became a journalist because I needed to believe someone somewhere was telling the truth. She touched her chest, the scar beneath thin cotton. I exposed hospital corruption because I couldn't expose the fact that my father worked himself to death, and no one stopped him. We're both orphans, Adrian said softly, both terrible at being saved. His almost smile appeared, the rare, real one Patricia had mentioned. Probably why we make such poor patients. Down the hall, footsteps approached. Patricia's voice mixed with someone else's. Dr. Palmer's requesting all security footage from the cardiac wing. Past 3 weeks. Adrian's face went carefully blank. Maya's new heart stuttered once. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Not enough." Patricia appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. "Dr. Cross, Palmer wants to see you. Now, he has questions about the night of Miss Reeves's transplant." Adrian stood, met Maya's eyes, started toward the door. "Wait." Maya's voice stopped him. "Whatever happens, thank you. For Ethan. For me. For trying." Something crossed his face. Grief and gratitude and fear mixed so thoroughly she couldn't separate them. Then he was gone. And Maya was alone with a heart that had belonged to someone else. Someone who'd been loved desperately and lost anyway. She reached for her laptop. If Palmer wanted answers, she'd make sure he got the right questions first. The pediatric cardiac wing smelled different. Crayons and hope mixed with antiseptic. Adrian held the door for Maya, her first supervised trip beyond her floor in 3 weeks. She moved carefully, her new heart still learning the rhythm of stairs and hallways. "He's not supposed to bring you here," Patricia had whispered while unhooking monitors. "But he comes twice a week. The kids ask for him." The common room held scattered toys and medical equipment disguised as play structures. Small bodies with chest scars like hers. Children who'd learned too young that hearts could betray you. Adrian knelt beside a girl with dark braids and eyes too old for 7. She held up a drawing. Hearts with wings. Dozens of them, flying across construction paper sky. "That's beautiful, Sophie. I draw them every day." Sophie studied her work seriously. "So when I get my new heart, it'll know how to fly." Maya's throat closed. "How long have you been waiting?" Adrian asked gently. 2 years. Sophie counted on small fingers. 730 days. But Mom says the right heart takes time to find. It does. Adrian's voice stayed steady through what must have cost him. "But it's coming. I promise. Is your heart magic?" Sophie turned to Maya suddenly. "Adrian said you got a new one." Maya looked at Adrian. Back at this child who'd spent a third of her life waiting for what Maya had received in hours, without warning, without choice, without the years of hoping Sophie had endured. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "All hearts are magic," Adrian said. He touched Sophie's chest lightly, over her struggling heart. "Because they keep going even when they're scared, even when everything is hard. That's magic. So my heart is brave? The bravest heart I know." Sophie beamed, then went back to drawing wings. Outside the common room, Maya rounded on Adrian, her voice low and shaking. "This is why, not Ethan, not me. This." Adrian leaned against the wall like it was the only thing holding him up. I watch them wait. I watch them hope. I watch some of them die because hearts don't come fast enough, or match well enough, or exist at all. So you decided to bypass the system. I decided the system is a lie we tell ourselves, so we can sleep at night while children draw pictures of organs they'll never receive. Maya thought of her laptop, the exposé she'd been writing, the systematic failures, the corruption, the rules designed by lawyers to protect hospitals instead of patients. And here was a surgeon who'd broken every rule to save one life while following them meant watching others die. "You're a hypocrite or a hero. I can't tell which. Neither can I." That night, Palmer knocked on her door. No preamble, no politeness, just a document he placed on her bedside table. "Dr. Cross has been suspended pending formal investigation. You'll be reassigned to Dr. Nina Reeves immediately. She's excellent. Very by the book." He left before Maya could find words. Adrian appeared an hour later, still in his scrubs, eyes hollow. "I'm not allowed to treat you anymore." Her monitor beeped. Foreign rhythm, Ethan's rhythm, the only rhythm keeping her alive. "What happens now?" I don't know. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. I'm not allowed near patients, not allowed in ORs, not allowed to do the only thing I know how to do. Sophie's face flashed through Maya's mind. 7 years old, 730 days waiting. Palmer's going to destroy you. Probably. And me? If my body starts rejecting, Dr. Reeves is excellent. He couldn't meet her eyes. You'll be fine. But her chest already felt wrong. Too tight, too irregular. Adrian. Her voice stopped him at the door. What if I'm not? He didn't answer. Just left. 48 hours later, Maya's rejection markers doubled. The headline appeared at 6 a.m. Maya saw it on her phone before her eyes fully opened. Cardiac surgeon under investigation for unauthorized transplant. Metropolitan Hospital. Dr. Adrian Cross. No patient names. Not yet. Her editor called before she could process it. Marcus, with his coffee-stained enthusiasm and shark instincts for a story that mattered. Maya. Tell me you're seeing this. Tell me you have access. I'm still recovering. You're a medical journalist inside a hospital scandal. This is the piece we've been waiting for. Insider perspective. The corruption, the violation of consent. It's perfect. She ended the call, stared at her reflection in the darkened phone screen. The career-making story she'd spent 6 years chasing was beating inside her chest. Dr. Nina Reeves arrived at 9 a.m. with updated labs and a face that suggested emotions were inefficient. Your rejection markers are concerning. We're increasing immunosuppressants. By how much? Enough to stabilize you. The new medication hit like a truck. Nausea rolled through her in waves. Her hands shook too hard to type. Thoughts scattered like dropped glass. Nina called it necessary adjustment. Patricia called it overkill when the doctor wasn't listening. Dr. Cross had different dosing recommendations, Patricia whispered while checking vitals. But Dr. Reeves won't look at them. Why not? Because he's suspended. And she follows protocol. Maya's body worsened over 3 days. The monitor's rhythm grew erratic, her chest tight with pressure that wasn't quite pain but wasn't quite breathing either. She watched through her window as security turned Adrian away at the cardiac wing entrance. Watched him hand Patricia a folded paper before leaving. The note appeared on her table an hour later. Detailed medication adjustments, observations about her specific case. The careful handwriting of someone who couldn't stop being a doctor even when banned from practicing. Nina threw it away without reading it. Palmer visited that afternoon. Satisfaction poorly hidden behind professional concern. You see what happens when surgeons play God? Proper protocols exist for reasons. Dr. Cross's unauthorized experimentation is now threatening your life. He's trying to help. He's trying to cover his tracks. Palmer straightened his already perfect tie. The medical board hearing is scheduled for next week. You've been subpoenaed to testify. The paper arrived by courier that evening, official summons. Her testimony would determine if Adrian kept his license, kept his freedom, or lost everything. Patricia slipped her a phone number after midnight. He said you might need this. Maya stared at the digits. Everything she'd worked for demanded she tell the truth. That consent mattered. That rules existed to protect patients from exactly this. But she'd seen Sophie drawing hearts with wings, seen children waiting years for what she'd received in hours, seen a system that worked perfectly except for all the people it let die. She called at 3 a.m. Adrian answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. Do you regret it? Her voice cracked on the question. Every day. Silence stretched. Then, every day I don't. I have to testify, I don't know what to say. Tell the truth. Whatever that is for you. His breath caught. I gave you life, Maya. However it happened, however wrong it was, You get to choose what to do with it, even if that choice destroys you? Especially then. The line went quiet. Her borrowed heart beat its steady rhythm. Ethan's heart, still keeping her alive while his brother's career died. Adrian, what was he like? Your brother? Afraid, brilliant, lost, everything I couldn't fix. His voice softened. But his heart was good. Even at the end, even after everything. It was good. Maya closed her eyes. The hearing was in 4 days. The conference room smelled like fear disguised as institutional cleaning products. Fluorescent lights hummed their verdict before anyone spoke. Maya counted 7 board members behind the long table. Palmer at the end, satisfaction written in the set of his shoulders. Adrian in a chair that might as well have been a defendant's box, hands folded carefully in his lap. His lawyer stood. A woman with gray streaks and tired eyes who'd seen this fight before. Emergency circumstances, imminent death. No time for standard transplant protocols. My client acted to preserve life when all other options had expired. The board chair, a man whose nameplate read Dr. Harrison, interrupted. Dr. Cross falsified donor records, violated informed consent, circumvented federal transplant regulations. These aren't minor procedural oversights. Palmer leaned forward. The timeline alone is damning. 2 hours from brain death declaration to organ procurement. Impossible through legitimate channels. Adrian said nothing, just sat with the stillness of someone who'd already accepted loss. We'd like to hear from the patient. Dr. Harrison's eyes found Maya in the back row. Miss Reeves. Maya stood. Every head turned. She walked to the front in the hospital gown she'd lived in for 6 weeks. No street clothes. No attempt at professional presentation. She was the evidence. Let them see it. She sat in the chair facing 7 people who held Adrian's future in their protocol-worshipping hands. Did you consent to the transplant procedure? No. Were you informed of the risks? No. Do you believe Dr. Cross acted appropriately? The room held its breath. Maya met Adrian's eyes, then turned to face the board. Dr. Cross saved my life by breaking every rule you worship. The heart in my chest came from a man who died alone because your system failed him. Failed to find him. Failed to help him. Failed to make his death mean anything until one surgeon decided compassion mattered more than paperwork. Miss Reeves, Dr. Harrison's voice carried warning. Please confine yourself to facts. These are facts. She stood, unable to sit anymore. I'm alive because Adrian Cross saw a chance and took it while everyone else hid behind protocols designed by lawyers to protect hospitals, not patients. If you punish him for that, you tell every dying patient in every waiting room that procedure matters more than their pulse. Palmer's face flushed red. This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is watching children draw pictures of organs they'll never receive while you people debate timelines. Maya's voice rose. I've spent my career exposing corruption, real corruption. Doctors who harm for profit. Administrators who value reputation over lives. Adrian Cross is guilty of unauthorized compassion. If that's a crime, your system is broken beyond repair. Silence. I'm checking myself out. Maya pulled at her IV port, the tape tearing skin. Against medical advice. Because I'd rather die with this heart than live knowing I helped destroy the man who gave it to me. Miss Reeves, your condition is unstable. My condition is alive. She looked at Adrian. And that's more than your protocols would have given me. Security was called. Maya walked out on her own feet, borrowed heart hammering, knowing she'd just burned every bridge she had. But Adrian's eyes as she passed him held something she'd never seen there before. Hope. The video went viral by noon. Someone had recorded Maya's testimony on their phone. Patient defends surgeon who saved her life without consent. The comments section became a war zone. She's been manipulated. Stockholm Syndrome. She's a hero standing up to bureaucratic murder. The hospital's switchboard crashed under the volume of calls. The medical board delayed its decision pending further review. Palmer gave 3 interviews trying to control the narrative. Each one made him look worse. Maya signed herself out against medical advice at 4 p.m. Her hands shook signing the forms. Patricia hugged her at the elevator, tears in her eyes. "You did good." Adrian waited in the parking lot, leaning against a car that had seen better years. He straightened when he saw her, uncertainty written in every line of his body. Neither of them knew what to say. He drove her to an apartment 20 minutes from the hospital. 3rd floor, sparse furniture, medical journals stacked on every surface. It looked like a place someone existed in but never lived. "You can take the bedroom." He set her small bag of belongings on the counter. "I'll stay on the couch." "Adrian, I'm not legally allowed to treat you, but I can monitor vitals. Make sure you don't crash before this resolves, before you lose everything because of me, before we figure out what happens next." The routine built itself quietly. He worked from his laptop, consulting for hospitals in other states, teaching remotely, staying useful in the only ways left to him. She wrote, her laptop balanced on her knees, words pouring out that had nothing to do with the exposé Marcus kept demanding. She wrote about Sophie drawing hearts with wings, about a system that worked perfectly for everyone except the people dying in its waiting rooms, about the gap between medical ethics written in conference rooms and human need bleeding out on operating tables. Her rejection markers stabilized within a week. The blood work she sent to Nina showed improvement no medication adjustment could explain. Nina called, professional concern masking something harder. "You need to come back. These levels don't make sense without proper monitoring. I'm being monitored by a suspended surgeon who can't legally practice medicine, by the only person who understands this heart. Maya." Nina's voice dropped. "This is psychosomatic. You're creating a dependency that isn't medical." "Or maybe," Maya said quietly, "hearts know their surgeons. Maybe healing happens when you feel safe, not just medicated." She hung up. Found Adrian watching from the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand. "She can't explain it," Maya said. "Neither can I." He moved to sit across from her. "But it's real, whatever this is. What happens if you lose your license? I'll find another way to help people. There's always another way." "And us?" The question hung between them. Bigger than transplants or hearings or rules broken in the name of saving lives. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then looked up at Maya, his face draining of color. The medical board has made its decision. 3 weeks bled into each other like watercolors left in rain. The medical board hadn't ruled. Adrian remained suspended in professional purgatory. Maya remained alive in defiance of every protocol. They existed in the strange space between crisis and resolution, where time moved differently. He taught her to cook on a Tuesday that smelled like garlic and possibility. She'd lived on takeout and hospital trays her entire adult life. He measured everything with surgical precision. She eyeballed ingredients and improvised with abandon. "You can't just guess at measurements. Watch me." They burned dinner twice. The smoke alarm shrieked its judgment. And then they laughed. Really laughed. The kind that comes from your stomach and doesn't stop until you're gasping. Maya couldn't remember the last time she'd made that sound. She made him sleep. Actual sleep in a bed, not collapsed exhaustion on the couch at 4 a.m. He made her rest. Real rest, not anxious scrolling through medical journals looking for precedent that didn't exist. Patricia appeared on a Sunday, arms full of files she wasn't supposed to have. Other patients asking for you. She spread cases across the kitchen table, complex repairs, delicate procedures. now assigned to surgeons who didn't know these hearts the way Adrian did. The hospital's fracturing. Patricia's voice dropped. Half the staff wants you back. Half thinks Palmer's right. It's getting ugly. What does Palmer want? Your head on a pike. She looked at Maya. And yours for putting it there. Diane Worthington called the next day. Cultured voice with steel underneath. I'd like to meet with you, Miss Reeves. Not hospital business. Personal curiosity. They met at a cafe 3 blocks from Adrian's apartment. Diane wore pearls and carried grief like expensive perfume. Subtle but always present. My husband died waiting for a heart. She stirred sugar into tea. She wouldn't drink. 18 months on the transplant list. Every day we hoped. Every day nothing came. Until one day he stopped hoping and his body agreed. I'm sorry. Don't be. Diane's eyes were sharp as scalpels. Be useful instead. Tell me what you want. Adrian back in surgery. It's the only place he makes sense. That might be possible, but it requires sacrifice. The board won't reinstate him without admission of wrongdoing, probation, limited privileges, supervised practice. Diane leaned forward. A leash. But he'd be working. And if he refuses? Then Palmer wins. The scandal destroys the hospital. Adrian loses his license permanently. And you? The stress will likely trigger catastrophic rejection in that borrowed heart. She paused. Sometimes winning means accepting a compromise you hate. Maya walked home slowly. Found Adrian at his laptop, consulting on a case he couldn't touch. She told him about Diane's offer. He closed the computer. I won't lie about what I did, even if telling the truth costs everything. Especially then. She wanted to argue, wanted to shake him until he saw reason. But she understood. Some truths matter more than survival. Her phone buzzed. Marcus, her editor. The exposé deadline was tomorrow. She still hadn't written it. Adrian noticed her expression. What is it? My editor wants the story. The insider piece on hospital corruption, you, me, all of it. Are you going to write it? Maya looked at the man who'd given her his brother's heart. Who'd broken every rule to save a stranger. Who'd lose everything because he couldn't let one more person die while paperwork shuffled. I don't know. But the truth was, she did know. She just didn't know if she could live with the choice. Adrian told Diane no over the phone. His voice steady as a scalpel cut. I won't admit wrongdoing for saving a life. Maya grabbed the phone from his hand. He's being an idiot. Tell him he's being an idiot. Diane's sigh carried through the speaker. Dr. Cross, pride is expensive. Can you afford the bill? It's not pride. It's truth. Maya ended the call, rounded on him with fury that came from fear. A leash is better than exile. Not if the leash is a lie. They're offering you a way back. To what? A career built on admitting I was wrong to save you? He stood, jaw tight. I'd rather lose the license. Then you're choosing principle over people. Her voice cracked. Over Sophie, over every patient who needs you, over me, I'm choosing not to betray what I believe matters. What you believe? She was shouting now. I believe I need you alive and working, not martyred on some ethical hill, and I need you alive and free, not living with a man who compromised everything that made saving you worthwhile. The words hit like fists. They stood in the wreckage of the fight, both breathing hard, both terrified of what came next. Maya's chest hurt, not rejection, just emotion too large for her borrowed heart to contain. Palmer filed formal charges 3 days later. Criminal, negligence, unauthorized organ procurement, federal fraud violations. The lawyer called with a voice tight as wire. It's not about your license anymore. It's prison, 5 to 10 years, Diane called. Take the deal. The lawyer called. Take the deal. Maya said it without words, just looked at him with eyes that begged. Adrian said no. The trial was set for 6 months out. Until then, limited supervised practice, consultations only, no surgery, no patient contact beyond advice. He returned to the hospital on a Monday. The hallways felt like walking through a graveyard of his former life. Half the staff looked away. The other half nodded with something like respect or pity or both. Patricia found him in the consultation room. Sophie's declining. She needs a transplant soon or she won't make it. Adrian pulled her file. Read the notes with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. Then made phone calls that weren't technically illegal, but weren't exactly approved either. A patient at County General. 26 years old. Motorcycle accident. Brain death. Family undecided about organ donation. Adrian called them. Spoke with a mother whose voice broke on every other word. Told her about a 7-year-old girl who drew hearts with wings. About hope measured in days. About how her son could matter in ways that transcended loss. The family consented. Sophie's transplant happened on a Thursday. Another surgeon's hands. Adrian watched from the gallery, fingernails cutting crescents into his palms. The heartbeat pink and perfect in the small chest. Sophie opened her eyes 2 days later and asked if her new heart knew how to fly yet. Palmer heard about Adrian's involvement that afternoon. By evening, witness tampering had been added to the charges. Maya found Adrian on his apartment balcony, staring at a city that had no answers. Was it worth it? She asked. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much and not enough. Sophie's alive. So, yes, even if it costs you everything, especially then. Inside, his phone rang. The lawyer, probably, or Diane, or someone else telling him he'd made a mistake that couldn't be unmade. Adrian didn't move to answer it, just stood with Maya in the dark. 2 people who'd saved each other in all the wrong ways, waiting to see if wrong could somehow become right before the system ground them both to dust. 14 months after the scalpel first slipped through skin, Maya woke to sunlight that didn't smell like antiseptic. The trial had ended in a hung jury, 8 votes to convict, 4 to acquit. The state declined to retry. Too much public support. Too much reasonable doubt about whether saving a life could be criminal. Adrian's license was reinstated with conditions. 2 years supervised practice. No transplant surgeries. Only repairs. It was enough. Maya's rejection markers were undetectable. Her body had fully accepted Ethan's heart. She was stronger now than before her original heart had failed. Ran 3 miles twice a week. Climbed stairs without her chest tightening. Lived in a body that finally felt like hers. She'd published her piece 6 months ago. Not the exposé Marcus had demanded. A meditation on medical ethics in a system that valued protocol over pulse. It won awards she didn't want, and changed hospital policies in 3 states. The changes mattered more. They lived together now, not romantic exactly. Something deeper. 2 people who shared a heartbeat, literally. She felt his grief on bad days. He felt her fear when storms rolled through. They moved around each other like planets in careful orbit, necessary and inevitable. Thursday morning they returned to the hospital together. Maya volunteered in pediatric cardiac now, told stories to children waiting for hearts that might never come, made them laugh, made them hope. Adrian performed a complex valve repair on a 16-year-old boy. Another surgeon had recommended full replacement. Adrian saved what could be saved. The boy would grow up with his own heart, intact, whole. After, they visited Sophie, 8 years old now, thriving, still drawing hearts with wings in increasingly sophisticated detail. She hugged Maya tight, pressed her ear against Maya's chest. I can hear both your hearts. They beat together. Maya met Adrian's eyes over the small head. That night on the balcony, city lights spreading below like promises, Maya asked the question she'd been carrying. Would you do it again? Take someone's heart without permission. Risk everything. Yes. No hesitation. Every time. Good. Her hand found her chest, the scar beneath her shirt. Because my father's heart failed when I was 12. I watched him die in a hospital. Paperwork and protocols, and nobody willing to break a single rule to save him. Adrian moved closer. Close enough that their shoulders touched. You gave me what the system took from him. Not just life, a chance to matter, to choose what living means. They stood in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other through theft and trauma and the wreckage of rules that didn't account for love. Somewhere in the city below, another heart stopped. Another surgeon made an impossible choice. The system kept breaking in the same places it always had, and people like Adrian kept fixing it the only way they knew how, one stolen moment at a time. Maya placed her hand over her chest, felt the rhythm that had belonged to a brilliant broken boy who died alone, but mattered in the end. Adrian's hand covered hers, warm, steady. The hands that had held a heart and made a choice that changed everything. Two hearts, one rhythm. The city breathed below them, alive with all its failures and all its chances, and they stood together in the dark, listening. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please subscribe to White Coat Tales and share your thoughts in the comments below. What resonated most with you? Maya's choice to defend the surgeon who violated her consent? Adrian's impossible decision to save a stranger with his brother's heart? Or the question of whether compassion justifies breaking the rules? If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know, have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing meant breaking the rules? Until next time, keep believing that sometimes hearts know more than protocols ever will.